In Python, everything is an object. Like you can see here, we have what we can see here, a car. Like we can see here, car. Take a car. If you take an object, so here what I'm explaining, I'm explaining what is an object and how object-oriented programming works. So there are different types of programming languages such as imperative, functional, declarative, procedural, structured, and object-oriented. Among all these types of programming languages, and object-oriented programming languages widely used, and it is quite easy for us to code and represent real-world objects and scenarios. Okay, so likewise, if in a procedural programming language such as C, you can't represent things as an objects, things concepts. So here, how to give you an example of what is an object and how it works. Here, as you can see, there's a car, which is which can be represented as an object in Python programming language. And if you take any object, that object usually has some properties or characteristics and some behavior. Likewise, if you take a dog, what are the characteristics? Color, breed, okay, and those are the characteristics. And what are the behavior? That will bark and run, jump, smell. So those are the things. Likewise, uh, here uh, here you can see, we take this object car that has a properties such as which is a brand BMW, and there is a mileage, and it is a white color brand, and it has ABS braking system feature. Those are the characteristics, and we call them as attributes. In a world of programming Python, those characteristics are referred as attributes. And if you take other things, the behavior, what is behavior of this object? It takes us from one point to other point, and you can actually write this thing, and you can break, turn right, turn left, go back, go forward, go backwards, no, turn on front lights. And so suppose it is a Tesla, like some cars are coming with autopilot, put it in autopilot, changing it, or like that. Those are the some action is taking place, so that is a behavior, so we call them as methods. Okay, in a so like you can see here, what are the attributes such as a properties, color, brand, mileage, braking system. Yeah, and methods we have a such as behavior. So we call them that is called, of course, in real world that is behavior or actions, but in the world of Python programming language for programming, we call them as methods, such as you can see, for example, start, brake, change gear, front lights up, So this is naming. Okay, you can name whatever you want. Okay, and so that is the thing. But let's see if we take how it works, and I hope you know already how to open a Python interpreter. Okay, for suppose if you open a Python interpreter, how do you refer? This is to show you how do you refer attributes and methods. So we refer attribute and methods by dot notation. So we use the object name and followed by dot and the attribute. And we get that if you use attribute, you don't have to put this parenthesis. Well, that is just like referring a variable. And if it is a method, we call that method, okay, to perform an action. So how do you call? We put parenthesis. So you can see here, get current speed, and we are calling that method, so which is 60, and is parked, and which is true false. And so these are the types, is parked is a yes no question, such that that can be either true or false. Okay, so we'll see that in a data type. So change gear is an action, and these are called parameters and arguments, and yeah, arguments. So 3 is passed into the method such that the gear will be changed to the third level. Okay, So there are built-in functions. We use dir. We can use dir to check on. You may ask the question, how do we know what are the attributes and methods on any object? The way to check attributes and methods on any object is use dir of on that object to get attributes and methods. So to get for suppose we have the car object and we use dir of car to get the attributes and methods of car. Okay. So dir of list is a built-in data type, and you see, for suppose if we use dir of list, and it gave us all attributes, which includes both the attributes and methods. Okay, and whatever you see here with double underscore, preceding double underscore, and succeeding double underscore, these are called magic methods, and we will see them in future. And so let's see the anatomy of attribute, referring attribute or calling a method. So for suppose what is here, car is an object, and the brand is an attribute, and we refer that any attribute on an object by dot notation. And if you take again, car is a object, and change gear is a method, and we are passing an argument to a method enclosed inside parentheses, and we can pass multiple arguments separated by comma. Okay, so for suppose do you understand? Sometimes for some actions we don't need input. So for suppose you have a dog, pet dog. So fetch the ball. You know, if you say fetch the ball, what is an argument? Ball is an argument. Yeah. So likewise, some actions we need to provide input, some actions we don't need. So when we need to provide the input for some actions, we pass those arguments separated by comma within the parentheses. Okay, and how do you get help in Python? So we have the built-in function help, and you use help and put anything inside to get help. For suppose there's a print function. If you want help of print, this is right inside the interpreter. So which will give us the doc string. Doc strings are those that are written. The doc strings can be module level or class or a function. So the first string that we write inside a function or a class or a module are called doc strings, and those are used to generate automated documentations. Okay, so you can open the interpreter and type help of anything you want, and you will get the help. And see, in a coming, as we move forward, we will learn following things such as a lexical structure, data types, and statements, control flow, operators, functions. And not only this, and we will learn even advanced things such as object-oriented programming, okay, modules, packages, okay, all those things. But these are the basic essentials to move forward. So if you take a syntax, so lexical structure, learning a language, if you take a for suppose let me tell you this thing. You might be speaking English, Hindi, or Sanskrit, any language, but each spoken language, has its own syntax, such as the usage of a verb, subject, object, and helping verbs, and how you arrange them. So likewise, if you are learning if you are learning language, English means that you are learning how to use those vocabulary and how to put the subject, verb, object. So now that is syntax. It changes. If you don't use that properly, even though if you speak English, I won't understand. Likewise, if you take any programming language, every programming language has a syntax. So that syntax, these are called lexical structure. So if you're learning a programming language, in the sense you have to learn syntax and how to use identifiers and how to work with those operators and all those things. Okay, in the sense how to construct statements. Okay, So we will see syntax. Syntax means rules. If you don't write by rules, and Python interpreter won't understand. Same way that if you don't speak English by rules, I won't understand. And I may understand so whole summary what you are trying to tell, but I won't understand. That way, here syntax for a programming language, you are writing this program for whom? For a Python interpreter to understand. And we have learned already difference between interpreter and compiler, where interpreter interprets the statement by statement and executes. So we will learn syntax, comments, literals, identifiers, and reserved words. So what is syntax? This is overall. If you take a Python program, this is a simple program to determine whether the given number is even or odd. And let's look at the anatomy of this program. So here you can notice that if you are aware of other programming languages such as C, C++, Java, and there we use curly braces. But here you might, if you are from that programming language background, you might be surprised here to see there are no curly braces. That is another reason Python is readable, elegant. So here there are no curly braces, but all we use is indentation. So such as a 4 spaces to represent the block. Here there are 4 spaces. This is called indentation, which means that this statement belongs to this block. Okay, if condition. And this statement, or you can write inside the block multiple statements. So look at this. This is one level, and if you put something inside indent, this is called indentation. These 4 spaces. If you indent anything by 4 spaces, means you are putting that inside a block. This is called a suite. This is also called suite. Okay, which means that all this statement belongs to this block, which means if condition. So how does it work? If this condition satisfies, all these statements inside the block will be executed. If it doesn't satisfy, all statements inside the else will be executed. Now for suppose, let me explain. We have a variable n 5 which is defined. N by, if you take the any number integer, and if you do what is the definition of even number? If any number is divisible by 2, which leaving a remainder 0, which is a even number, otherwise it is an odd number. So I'm dividing it by 2 and checking whether it is 0 or not. Okay, if it is 0, if block, which means that all statements inside that if will be executed, otherwise else will be executed. Moving forward, what are the comments? For suppose, as if you're writing a program, any program, sometimes you want Python interpreter to ignore some lines where you don't want Python interpreter to treat those lines as valid Python statements, such that it will ignore and execute rest. So that, why do we use comments? We use comments for ourselves and for others who reads the program, because sometimes those are here. So one might think of it as a complex, but it is very simple. Sometimes when there are complex statements for us to understand, we may leave their comments, such as here I'm telling test if a reminder is 0, such as so what Python interpreter does, it checks, it executes this, but it leaves everything that is followed by hash. Okay, so and what is literal? Literal is a raw data value that directly appears in the program, which can be assigned into variables for referring later, and we will see the variables, what are variables, in a moment. But I hope you understand these comments. Okay, and leaving enough comments in a program is a good practice. And what are literals here? As we have seen here, literals are raw data values that directly appear in a program. For suppose 2, 3, 4, those are literals, strings, and we have a Boolean values don't come. And others, such as there are complex compound data types, such as list, dictionary tuples. Okay, and these can be assigned into variables to refer later. Let's see what are variables. Okay, and before we move forward, what are identifiers? Identifier is any name used in a Python program for the for naming variables, functions, classes, modules, and objects. Okay, so identifier is any name that can be used for these things, such as almost anything, such as variables, functions, classes, modules, and objects. What is so? Those are called identifiers. So uh, there are naming rules for identifiers. What is the naming rule? Hello, hello, hello. Oh, okay. So are you there now? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. What are the naming rules? So identifiers. What are naming rules? Naming rules are to name identifier that should start with alphabet that can be A to Z, capital A to Z, or small a to Z, and it may contain underscore and numerics. So identifier should contain alphanumerics with exception underscore, but it should start with the A to Z, uh, or alphabet. Okay, that can be caps, or that can be uppercase or lowercase. So what are keywords? Keywords are identifiers, but they are reserved words. They cannot be used for naming anything else, such as variables, functions, classes, modules, and objects. So Python programming language reserved few words for a special purpose because they are used in writing a program, making syntax, making statements. Okay, so uh, what is a keyword? Keyword is a reserved word that cannot be used naming anything else. So these are keywords, and such as a false, we will use now also. If you are learning any programming language, you should know all keywords. You should know syntax, keywords, and data types, and working with those data types. So we eventually use all these keywords because we can't write any program without using these keywords. And what are variables? Okay, variables are like containers to store literals to refer them later. Okay, and in a Python, variables in a static type programming languages, variables in dynamic type programming languages differ according to the way they work. So variables here are like a mere references to the values stored in a RAM. Suppose here if you take a, which is a variable, uh, and it that name of the variable should be according to the laws of naming uh, identifiers. Okay, we have 45 inside. Let's say you can see here box. So this value is stored inside RAM, but this variable is like a label uh, referring to this value. For suppose we have another variable which is also referring to this value. But let's say you have another value stored in a RAM, but you can assign that value directly on fly to the variable B. Okay, so it is just like you have the container. The variable is uh, variable on container. You know, peeling off that. Peeling off that label and sticking it to the another container, just like that. Okay, these are references referring to the values inside RAM. So to here you saw this is cylinder. This is a box like structure. This is to show you that not all values take a same amount of memory and same amount of not all values are stored the same way in the RAM. So let's see some example variable assignment. In a Python, if you take a here, I'm assigning 45 to the variable A. So I'm assigning here 50 again 45 to variable B. So we can refer them later like that, no, using we can simply, okay. And also we can assign, we can do some computation such as a plus b and c equal to, here what I'm doing, this is LHS and write RHS. This is called usually we equation, here it is a statement and it is also called assignment. And what we are doing here, we added two variables a plus b and assigned it to c. Okay, so likewise we can do all sorts of those things, uh, variables, but the whole purpose is to use them later. Okay, simple thing here, this is a valid identifier because it has a, yeah, it starts with alphabet, yeah. And this is not a valid identifier because, yeah, it has space. Okay, and is this valid? It is not valid because it starts with the 8, which is a numeric. Well, yeah, so variable should start with the alphabet. Okay, and this is valid because variable may contain numerics, but that can be the only exception, variable should not start with the number. Okay, and this is also valid because it may contain underscore. Okay, and we have a, let's look into data types. Data types are most important thing in any programming language because the whole thing you will be doing with any program is to fiddle with data, right? Take some input, process that, and produce some output. Okay, so there are so let's look at uh, different types of data. Data is not uniform in this world. Data is available in different forms, and so likewise we can see this is number, this is a decimal value, and this is some text, and this is complex number, and this is equation, and this is matrix. Okay, this is called SIR. So likewise we have different types of data available. We need different types of data types also, because to store those types of different data. Likewise, if you go to the shop to buy groceries, or if you're planning a tour, such as based on your needs, you will choose the bag because say, single bag uh, may not be sufficient for all needs. Likewise, okay. So there are different types of data types, and Python to provide the way to store and to work with these different types of data available in this world. Okay, so what are these data types in Python? Those data types are none, Boolean, integer, float, string, tuple, list, dictionary, set, frozen set. So these types of these are different types of data. These are essential data types, and the Python comes with batteries. We have learned. We can include other types of data structures from the standard library as well. But these are the Python built-in data types. Okay. So, and there's no exception here. You will have to learn all these data types for to be able to write any program proficiently. So data types can be classified as a storage according to closed storage model, access model, and update model. Data types can be classified as a scalar container according to storage model. According to the access model, data types classified as a direct, sequence, or a mapping data types. And according to the update model, data types can be classified as mutable, immutable. And the most important thing for you to understand is mutable, immutable. Because if you don't understand what is mutable and what is immutable, you tend to write programs with logical errors, because they won't produce any errors, but they will produce wrong output. Okay, so that we'll see as we move forward while learning data types. None means nothing. We use none to provide a empty, void. So there are equivalent data types in other programming languages. For suppose if you see uh, C, C++, if you take the equivalent data type there is a void. Void means nothing. Okay. So to represent nothing out there, we use none. So we can assign that value to the variable and we can refer that later as. Okay. And the another data type is a Boolean. What do you see here? We see here dog, but Boolean is used for yes no questions. For suppose if I ask you, is this dog? You would say yes. Or if I ask you, is this monkey? You would say no. But yeah, there are only two choices because I'm asking yes no question. Is this caterpillar? Is this alien? Okay. Or is this toy? So there are yes no questions. Okay, there is no either can be that can be yes or no, or such that that can be either true false. So for these yes no questions, for the data types to represent yes no values, we use what is called a true or false. These are called literals. So this bool means binary means two. Boolean means there are, since here we have two literals, we call it as a Boolean. Okay, either it can be true and it can be false. Okay, remember this, not like other programming languages here. It should be the title case, in the sense first letter should be caps. Okay, so otherwise it will be a syntax error. Okay, so for suppose here look at this thing. If true, okay, that is a literal. False is a literal, Boolean literal. And is animal, which is true, I'm assigning to the variable. Okay, is fox, which is a false, I'm assigning to the variable, and we can refer it later. And okay, I hope you understand. For any type of data that has only two values, okay, that can be yes no question or that can be something else. Okay, so but that has only two outcomes, either true false or yes no. Okay, so for such a things we use Boolean data type. Other data types such as these are called number data types. We have different types, three types of number data types, such as integer, float, and complex. And these number data types can be classified as according to three models: scalar, direct, and immutable. Okay, scalar means according to the storage model, these are the direct values, single values. Okay, and according to the axis, these are direct because we to access them, that's just referring a variable is enough because we get the value. There's no complex process of referring or addressing inner values, because it is that will be complex if it is a container data type, and we will see that later as we move forward. So we have see this simple values. These are number types, and we can assign those values, and we can do some math with that. I'm assigning this to refer x. I'm using just x. So there is no the complex math or complex rocket science is not going on here. Just referring x, we get the value. That is direct access, and it is simple. As single values are stored, which is called a scalar. Okay, and there are sequence types, and there are mapping types, and we will see in a coming session.